Hi friends, this is Movietainment, and welcome back to our occasional review of great movies. As usual, we'll make a lighthearted introduction to a movie that's caught our eye, before sketching out the basic plot and throwing in a bucket load of opinions. We'll wrap the whole thing up with a similarly lighthearted summary. Today, we've decided to set our steely gaze on The Revenant. We hope you enjoy it. Legendary movie mogul Sam Goldwyn is supposed to have said, "I want a movie that begins with an earthquake and works up to a climax." He probably didn't say that at all, but emotionally, that's the kind of movie The Revenant is. The Revenant is set in the early 19th century wilderness of the USA and follows fur trappers in pursuit of wild critters. The movie lassos you from the opening sequence and drags you on a bareback gallop over relentlessly harrowing emotional terrain, never once letting go until it dumps you at the end of the final shot, shaking from your Stetson to your cowboy boots. Released in 2016 and starring the extraordinarily talented Leonardo DiCaprio, the film is several orders of magnitude more violent than Stu Grimson, the legendary Detroit Red Wings enforcer. So, if it's laughs you're after, I suggest you rent a copy of Home Alone, because this film should never feature as a centerpiece for a pizza and movie family evening, unless you want your children to have nightmares and spend the rest of their lives in counseling. The relentless violence will shake cinema-goers expecting to see something resembling a National Geographic documentary about beavers. Likewise, eager historians of American social history looking for a film demonstrating how similar to the TV show The Walton's life was in the natural wilderness of 1820s America will be similarly disappointed. The film's name derives from an Old English word meaning a return, especially a return from the dead. None of the villains in this movie has a single redeeming feature, and that goes for the good guys too, more or less. After I'd finished watching it for the first time, I had to stick my head in an ice bucket for half an hour to remind myself that it was only a story. Then, as I hauled my head out of the bucket and gasped for breath, I discovered that it was a retelling of a true story, which some claimed was even stranger than the film. Having watched 2.5 hours of the main character's unimaginable suffering, I resolved never to sweat the small stuff again, like getting dandruff or hanging drapes that don't match the wallpaper. The film spans on the whole gamut of man's inhumanity to man, ranging from abduction, rape, burying people alive, well, half dead actually if you insist on being picky, very close haircuts with tomahawks, and the burying of flint arrowheads in eye sockets, heads, ears, necks, and legs. Forgive me if I missed anything there. Here's the basic storyline. In 1823, DiCaprio's character Hugh Glass guides Captain Henry's trapping party through the wilderness of the present-day Dakotas. While he and his half-Indian son Hawk hunt, the camp is attacked by an Indian war party on the trail of the chief's abducted daughter, Powaqua. The trappers have guns, the Indians don't. But being armed is less of an advantage when you consider that the guns of the day took ages to load before firing. By comparison, a skilled Indian brave could embed a stone-headed tomahawk in your skull from 50 feet before you'd fished your powder pouch out of your saddlebag. The trappers take quite a beating, although some escape in a boat. Guided by Glass, the survivors travel on foot to Fort Kiowa. Glass seemed to be doing all right for himself for all of 20 minutes. That is, of course, before he becomes the object of a grizzly bear's fury. Who knows what annoys these critters? Answers on a postcard, please. 1,000-pound grizzly attacks Glass, mauling him to within 3/4 of an inch of his life. Here, the movie changes tone and direction as Glass's fellow travelers face the unappealing prospect of schlepping the half-dead Glass through the hostile wilderness to safety. Enter, stage right, Trapper Fitzgerald, the badder-than-baddest villain whose reserve of compassion for his fellow man is lower than a crocodile's teats. Fitzgerald doesn't much fancy a return match with the Indians since he recently learned, up close and personal, that they have a vast range of weapons, from very sharp to painfully blunt, which they have perfected over the years to kill intruders like him. Fitzgerald's plan, which he puts to Henry, is to shoot Glass and jog on. This mercy-killing plays badly with Henry, who refuses to shoot Glass. By the standards of the times, the sentimental fool Henry offers money to anyone who will stay until Glass snuffs it and gives him a proper burial. Fitzgerald signs up for this gig and trousers the cash. After all, he reckons, Glass is 7/8 dead by now, and the nearest ER is 200 years in the future. He'll have kicked the bucket inside 3 minutes. Not a bad earner. But no sooner is Fitzgerald left in charge than he decides that 3 minutes is too long to wait and attempts to smother Glass. He is thwarted by Hawk, Glass's son, whom Fitzgerald knifes to death. I told you this wasn't a family movie. Fitzgerald leaves Glass half buried in a hole in the ground. But though Glass is 98% dead, this means he is still 2% alive. He escapes from his grave, cauterizes his wounds Rambo style, and throws himself into Whitewater Rapids to evade the Indians, whose chief shows few signs of heading back to his wigwam for an afternoon nap anytime soon. Glass, now coming down with a fever and not a Tylenol in sight, encounters a Pawnee refugee, and they resolve to travel together. At this point, you might feel as if the movie has reached peak weirdness. Wrong. The Pawnee builds a sweat lodge and puts Glass in it. Here, he is induced to have hallucinogenic visions. Glass eventually emerges from the sweat lodge feeling a lot better. Unfortunately, French trappers have hanged his friend while he tripped the light. Fantastic. Bummer. He infiltrates the French trappers' camp and witnesses the leader raping Powaqua, the chief's daughter. He frees her, kills several hunters, and escapes on a horse. Glass's troubles are not yet over, though, because the next day, the Indians ambush him and, in an act of unprecedented nastiness, drive him and his horse over a cliff. Glass survives a stormy night by gutting the dead horse and climbing inside its body cavity to keep warm. Let's be clear about this. He spent the night inside a dead horse. So next time you decide to don your dressing gown, pajamas, and slippers, spare a thought for Glass in his equine onesie in the pitch-black, inhospitable night. A French survivor staggers into Fort Kiowa. After realizing that Glass is alive, Fitzgerald decides to add theft to his burgeoning portfolio of criminal activities, empties the outpost safe, and flees. A second party organized by Henry finds the exhausted Glass. Glass and Henry chase Fitzgerald. After they split up, Fitzgerald ambushes, kills, and scalps Henry. Glass finds Henry's corpse and puts a bullet in Fitzgerald's arm. He chases Fitzgerald to a riverbank where they engage in a brutal fight. Glass is about to kill Fitzgerald, but he spots a band of Indians and pushes Fitzgerald downstream towards them. If you have been paying attention, of the many things you may suspect Fitzgerald won't get at this point, a fair trial should be top of your list. The Indians scalp Fitzgerald, and having found Powaqua, spare Glass. Glass retreats into the mountains, presumably for a spot of hard-earned R&R. It's safe to say that The Revenant pulls no punches. Like other stories of survival against the odds and the indomitability of the human soul, Papillon, starring Dustin Hoffman, comes to mind. Audiences warm to heroes overcoming adversity. No one that we know of has yet made a movie about a family of 8 traveling across Los Angeles in August in an RV with malfunctioning aircon. A plot that might challenge The Revenant for top slot. Was Hugh Glass's survival a return from the dead, as the title suggests? It has to be. How else could you describe a man who slept in a horse instead of a Holiday Inn, was driven over a cliff by hostile Indians, was buried alive before, to paraphrase the song, picking himself up, dusting himself down, and starting all over again? We'll be back again soon with another review.